Some wins don't just change the standings, they change the heartbeat of a city. And on a cold, rain-soaked night in Carolina, a team everyone counted out finally reminded the world they were still alive. The storm slammed into the stadium like a warning. Sheets of rain, swirling wind, and mud swallowing cleats whole. It wasn't just bad weather, it was a test. A test of will. A test of identity. For weeks, the Panthers had wandered through games searching for themselves. Searching for answers. Searching for something that felt like Carolina football again. And then, on this night, they found it. They didn't win with flash. They didn't win with highlight plays. They won the old way, the hard way. 40 runs. 164 yards. Nothing fancy. Nothing explosive. Just punch after punch, drive after drive, refusing to bend. Rico Dowdle lowered his shoulders like a man carrying every doubt ever thrown at him. Chuba Hubbard fought for every scrape of daylight, every inch of slippery yardage. And then came the moment. The catch and run. The breakaway that cut through the storm and tied the game, not just on the scoreboard, but in spirit. This wasn't just a touchdown. It was a signal flare. A reminder that this young team is learning how to survive. Their head coach, still early in his own journey, had faced a different kind of pressure all week, the pressure of expectations. The pressure of leading a team that had been embarrassed just days earlier. The pressure of proving you can build something real, even when the world is laughing. This night forced him to make a choice. And he made the right one. He turned to the ground game, trusted his players, and committed to an identity the Panthers had been trying to grasp for months. Maybe the weather pushed them into it. Maybe fate did. But whatever it was, it worked. The defense fed off that energy too. With stars injured, with big names sidelined, the players left standing stepped into the storm like they belonged there. A tipped pass became an interception. A desperate throw turned into a pick-six. The kind of defensive plays that don't just shift momentum, they shift belief. Every player who walked onto that field knew what this meant. A season hanging by a thread. A fan base exhausted but loyal. A future still uncertain. But on this night, they fought like a team refusing to disappear. Because sometimes identity isn't built in a film room or a practice field. Sometimes it's forged in the rain, when the lights are dim, the pressure is heavy, and the entire stadium is daring you to quit. And the Panthers didn't quit. They grew. They found something. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like the beginning of a story worth believing in. The storm didn't end when the final whistle blew. It followed the Panthers into the locker room, not rain, not wind, but the weight of everything this team has carried all season. Injuries, doubt, whispers about the future, and somehow, they're still standing. The defense, bruised and patched together with hope and tape, played like a unit refusing to break. Even the newest face on the roster, barely settled into his locker, threw himself into the fight. One tackle may not sound like much, but sometimes it's not about the numbers, it's about showing you're ready to bleed with the rest of them. But the true miracle was happening in the trenches. That offensive line, torn apart week after week by injuries, reshuffles, and desperation, held firm again. No excuses. No complaining. Just grit. Every snap felt like defiance, as if 5 battered men were declaring to the league, "We're not collapsing. Not now. Not ever." And behind them, the Panthers played the kind of football that feels like it belongs to this region, muddy, punishing, unforgiving. The running backs hammered forward like they were carrying the entire season on their backs. Every yard was carved out of the earth. Every first down felt like stealing oxygen from the opponent. The ghosts of past Carolina tandems, the legends who once owned this ground, would have been proud. But then came something unexpected. Silence, then calm, then clarity. The quarterback stepped into that calm. No forced heroics. No reckless throws. No trying to prove anything to anyone. Just poise. 20 passes. That's all he was asked for. And he treated each one like it could decide the night. He found his receivers with a level of control and trust that this team had been desperate to see. One touchdown threaded between defenders. Another ripped through the rain into waiting hands. Each throw felt like a promise, not of greatness, but of growth. And when the game reached its most fragile moment, when the crowd held its breath, he went right into the heart of the field, the spot everyone says quarterbacks his size shouldn't be able to see, and fired the completion that slammed the door shut. Ice in his veins. A moment bigger than the stats. A moment this team needed. Yet even with those plays, the truth is simple, he is not the engine. He is the passenger being carried forward by a brutal, relentless run game and a defense that refuses to stop swinging. And that's okay. Some quarterbacks drive. Some quarterbacks survive. Right now, he's surviving, and that's enough. Because as long as the ground game keeps churning, as long as the defense keeps stealing possessions, and as long as he keeps making the big throws when the lights burn hottest, this team will give itself a chance. And there it was, the winning formula rediscovered in the mud, two backs pounding through defenders like the old Carolina legends. Receivers rising at the perfect moments. A quarterback doing exactly what he needs to and nothing more. A defense turning chaos into opportunity. The Panthers walked off the field with more than a win. They walked off with belief, fragile, imperfect, but real. And with belief comes danger. Because a team that learns how to win ugly, is a team that no one wants to see in December. There are moments in a season when a single play, a single player, feels like he's carrying the weight of destiny on his shoulders. And in the fourth quarter, when pressure was suffocating and the game teetered on a knife's edge, one young receiver stepped into the spotlight like he'd been waiting his entire life for this exact moment. He ran those routes like they were written into his DNA, sharp, fearless, purposeful. Every catch felt like a declaration, I belong here. And the irony? The team on the other sideline, the one stunned by him, once wanted him desperately. They saw the spark months ago and tried to pry him away on draft night. But Carolina held firm. And now, as rain soaked the field and nerves tightened, they were watching the very player they wanted sliced through their defense. But the night wasn't just about him. This game stirred a deeper fear, the fear Panthers fans whisper about when no one's listening. If the Panthers ever give up on their young quarterback, where would he bloom next? Everyone knows the answer. Back home. Back under the Los Angeles lights. Back with a head coach who turns chaos into brilliance. There's a world where he becomes a star out west. And this matchup, the cold rain, the national spotlight, the duel against a powerhouse opponent, felt like some twisted audition for a future Carolina never wants to see. But instead of shrinking under that weight, he rose. He didn't battle the weather, he embraced it. He didn't let mistakes define him, he refused to make any. He didn't force magic, he created it when it mattered. And now? A bye week looms, then a gauntlet of games that could define an entire season. The Saints await, a team that embarrassed Carolina earlier. That loss still lingers, stinging like salt in a wound. The Panthers will step into New Orleans not just to win, but to correct a wrong. After that comes Tampa. Then Seattle. Then Tampa again. And in the NFC, December doesn't care who you are, it only cares who survives. But if Carolina needed a spark, they found it on this field. They found it in a running back rediscovering his explosiveness after weeks of pain. They found it in a defense that keeps rewriting its limits, interceptions, breakups, relentless pressure. They found it in young role players stepping up like seasoned veterans. They found it in a team that no longer flinches when adversity growls in its face. And maybe most importantly, they found it in their coach. A man questioned, doubted, scrutinized, not because he lacked knowledge, but because he lacked proof. Proof that he could steady the storm. Proof that he could pull a fragile roster back from the ledge. Proof that he could build something real. And on this night, he showed something new. Not brilliance. Not perfection. But composure. He didn't chase emotions. He didn't panic. He didn't waver. He gave his team a plan, and they followed him through the downpour with absolute belief. Not flashy. Not loud. But steady. And that steadiness carried them. Because this game wasn't supposed to be close. With the secondary wounded, with a star corner out, with the other team's weapons firing on all cylinders, this should have been a rout. But instead, something shifted. Confidence reawakened. Roles sharpened. Identity returned. This win wasn't just another tally in the standings. It was a message, to themselves more than anyone else: we are not done. We are not broken. And we are not going quietly. And as the locker room doors closed after the game, the echoes of Monday night's disaster evaporated. This team walked into the storm doubted by everyone, and walked out believing again. There are wins that feel routine. And then there are wins that feel like a warning shot, a message to the entire league. This wasn't supposed to be complicated. People expected Carolina to roll past Los Angeles, expected them to handle the rain, expected the home crowd to carry them. But the truth is deeper, heavier. This wasn't just another victory. It was a moment that revealed the truth about a team that has lived in chaos and brilliance in equal measure. Because young teams don't grow in straight lines. They spike. They crash. They surprise you when you least expect it. And somehow, through all the inconsistency, through all the doubt, the Panthers have quietly collected a list of scalps that should make the entire conference uneasy. They walked into Lambeau and froze the Packers in their own house. They took down the Cowboys under the bright lights at home. And now they've outlasted a Rams team that believes it's built for February football. These aren't fluke wins. These are playoff wins, the kind a real contender needs. But then you look at the cracks, the sloppy losses, the narrow escapes, the maddening inconsistency, and you can't help but wonder, what is this team capable of if they ever finally lock in? Because somewhere beneath the volatility, beneath the missteps, beneath the growing pains, there is a version of this roster that can become terrifying. A version knocking loudly on the door. And this win didn't just keep doors open for January, it cracked open possibilities for what the future could look like. Momentum isn't just built for one season. It's built for years. Wins like this stick to your ribs. They follow you into the off-season. They shape identity. They shape belief. And belief is everything in December. Now they walk into a bye week with something they haven't had in a long time: control. Control over their own fate. Control over their rhythm. Control over what happens next. But control comes with responsibility. Because last time they celebrated a big win, they let their guard down. The victory glow carried into the next Sunday, and a beatable opponent punched them straight in the mouth. It can't happen again. Not now. Not with everything on the line. This time, the bye week has to be different. Rest the body. Reset the mind. Refocus the mission. Take your 2 days at the beach. Clear your head. Let the bruises fade. Then come back ready to fight, because the Saints are waiting, and they already stole one from Carolina. Getting swept would be unforgivable. It would stain the season. It would unravel the belief they've worked so hard to rebuild. Win that game, and the path sharpens. Get your starters back. Get your leaders back. Get your identity back. Because meaningful December football has returned to Carolina, something few people thought was possible a year ago. Last winter, they ruined playoff dreams for other teams. This winter, they're chasing their own. And after beating a heavyweight contender, after surviving the rain, the noise, the pressure, the locker room feels different. Steadier. Hungrier. More connected. They didn't win on luck. They didn't win on gimmicks. They won because they refused to fold. Run the ball. Stand tall on defense. Protect your young quarterback. Make every snap a statement. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't easy. It wasn't comfortable. But it was real. And now, with the wild card alive, the division within reach, and momentum humming through the building, Carolina steps into the most important stretch of its season. A storm is coming. But so are the Panthers.